This is the story of Yetunde, a girl with dreams bigger than the life she was born into, a girl betrayed by a system meant to protect her, and a woman determined to rise from the ashes. I was Yetunde, and until a few months ago, ache was just a word in a textbook. Now it was the only language I understood. Orphaned at 7, swallowed up by the chaotic kindness of my auntie's crowded house in Kubwa, Abuja, I'd learned to be small, to be quiet, to be invisible. Getting good grades was my escape, my ticket out. But the ticket booth slammed shut the night John walked into my life. He was everything I wasn't: powerful, rich, entitled. He frequented the small market where I helped Auntie sell akara after school. At first, it was just smiles, a quick, "Good evening, Yetunde." Then came the compliments, the expensive bottled water he'd hand me, the offers of a ride home. I was naive, starved for attention, for someone to see me as something other than another mouth to feed. Auntie, bless her heart, warned me about men like him, men with honeyed words and empty promises. But I didn't listen. One evening, he offered me a ride to a scholarship interview downtown. He said he knew someone on the board, someone who could help me. Desperate for a chance, I agreed. That was my first mistake. The second was getting into his car. He didn't take me to the interview. He drove me to a secluded house, far outside the city limits. When I realized what was happening, I fought. I screamed. I clawed. But he was too strong. He took everything from me that night, my innocence, my hope, my belief that the world held any goodness for me. I remember the details in fractured snapshots. The expensive leather seats of his car, the smell of his cologne, the glint of a silver letter opener on a desk in the house. When he was done, when I was broken and bleeding on the floor, something snapped inside me. I don't remember grabbing the letter opener. I just remember the cold steel in my hand, the red blooming on his crisp white shirt, the silence that followed. Then I ran. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs screamed. I ran until I collapsed in a dusty field, the Harmattan wind mocking me. I was arrested 2 days later. The trial was a blur of legalese and hostile faces. My auntie scraped together every naira she could find to hire a lawyer, a young, idealistic man named Mr. Adebayo. He tried God, he tried. He argued self-defense, citing the trauma I'd endured. He painted a picture of John as the predator he was, a man who preyed on vulnerable girls. But John's family had money, and money talked louder than truth in that courtroom. John wasn't just a wealthy man, he was connected. The judge seemed to barely look at me, his gaze always drifting to the well-dressed men sitting in the back row. The prosecution painted me as a cold-blooded killer, a spiteful girl who murdered a respected businessman in cold blood. They twisted the facts, omitted crucial details, and presented John as a generous benefactor I had betrayed. The media ate it up, portraying me as a Jezebel, a lying, manipulative gold digger. The worst part was the looks, the pitying glances, the whispers, the silent accusations. Everyone saw me as damaged goods, a stain on the fabric of society. No one saw the terrified, broken girl who just wanted to escape a life of poverty and despair. Mr. Adebayo fought valiantly. He brought in witnesses who testified to John's predatory behavior, other young women he had harassed, but their voices were drowned out by the chorus of powerful men who rallied to protect their own. The day the verdict was delivered, the air in the courtroom was thick with tension. When the judge pronounced me guilty of murder and sentenced me to life imprisonment, the world tilted on its axis. I felt a coldness seep into my bones, a numbness that spread through my entire being. Life. It felt like a cruel joke. My life had barely begun, and now it was over. The prison is a concrete jungle, a world of harsh realities and broken dreams. The stench of stale food and despair hangs heavy in the air. The days bleed into weeks, weeks into months. The only colors are the dull gray of the walls and the faded orange of our uniforms. I share a cramped cell with 3 other women: Mama Chioma, a kind older woman who was convicted of stealing to feed her grandchildren; Fatima, a hardened young woman who deals drugs inside the prison walls, and Blessing, a quiet girl about my age who was caught in a robbery gone wrong. Mama Chioma became my surrogate mother, her gentle voice a balm to my wounded spirit. She taught me how to survive in this brutal environment, how to navigate the complex social hierarchy, how to protect myself from the predatory guards and the more violent inmates. Fatima taught me something else entirely. She taught me how to be hard, how to be ruthless, how to survive by any means necessary. She saw the fire in my eyes, the simmering rage that refused to be extinguished. She told me that I couldn't afford to be naive or vulnerable in here, that I had to become someone else, someone stronger, someone who wouldn't be broken. I started working in the prison library, a small, dusty room filled with forgotten books. It was my sanctuary, a place where I could escape the harsh realities of prison life and lose myself in the worlds created by others. I devoured books on law, on justice, on the Nigerian legal system. I wanted to understand how I had been failed, how the system had been rigged against me. I also started writing, pouring my thoughts and feelings into a worn-out notebook. I wrote about my life before, about the dreams I had, about the night everything changed. I wrote about John, about the trial, about the injustice I had suffered. I wrote about the women I shared my cell with, about their stories, about their struggles. Writing became my weapon, my way of fighting back. It gave me a voice, a way to reclaim my story, to refuse to be silenced. One day, Mr. Adebayo visited me. He looked tired and defeated, but his eyes still held a spark of hope. He told me that he hadn't given up on my case, that he was working with a human rights organization to appeal my conviction. "Yetunde," he said, his voice barely a whisper, "I know you're innocent. I know you were failed by the system, but we're not going to let them break you. We're going to keep fighting until we get justice for you." His words gave me strength, a renewed sense of hope. I knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but I also knew that I wasn't alone. There were people who believed in me, people who were willing to fight for me. The Harmattan wind still blows through Abuja, carrying its red dust. But now, when I feel it on my skin, I don't just feel the ache. I feel the fire, the determination, the unwavering belief that one day I will be free, maybe not physically, but they will never imprison my spirit. My story will be told. Justice, like the Harmattan dust, has a way of settling eventually, and I will be ready when it does. I am Yetunde, and I will not be silenced. The weight of the Harmattan dust will not suffocate me. I will survive.